Hey everybody, welcome back to the Badgerland Birding Podcast, bringing you birding news and stories from the Badger State and beyond. Today we're with my friend Jose, who helps run Costa Rican Nature down in Costa Rica. And so when I was doing my master's, I went down there with Nichols State, and we had an awesome time looking at the birds and everything in Costa Rica. There's some of the videos out. There's going to be more of them, but I can't wait to go and finish those videos up, and then hopefully go back to Costa Rica someday. So how you doing, Jose?
Hey, Derek, all good. Doing great here in Costa Rica. Having a good time. And I remember we had a great time going out for birding. And I've been having also a lot of good things out there. My trips that I take around here.
Yeah. For people that have never been to Costa Rica before, how would you describe the experience?
Well, Costa Rica is very diverse. Not only in maybe people have heard about Costa Rica in general as a country that has many different attractions, things to do, things to see. But the country is small, but it's very diverse. So we have two mountain ranges in the middle that divide the country in two slopes, and well, that brings a lot of variety on nature in general. And well, for sure, bird watching is it's just amazing. You know that what creates all these different microclimates, different elevations. You can be in one place at the lowland and drive just for 1 hour, and you'll be already in highland. So that makes things, so quickly to access, to move around, and so it's very unique. The diversity here is very unique, and the flexibility on how you can move around that also makes it a great place. Mhm.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And obviously the bird diversity is amazing. I would say it's probably the top destination outside of the US that most people talk about for going for bird watching just because there's so much to see. And the whole place is just beautiful. You know, I feel like anywhere we went, it was like, yeah, there's these amazing birds, but you're also by the ocean or you're in this mountainous range or you're in this forest. So there was so much to see on the trip that we went on. And one of the places that I thought was really cool was the Makenke Eco Lodge. And that was one of the videos we put out, and a lot of people liked that place as well because it was kind of tucked away. You would wake up and
Yeah.
there'd be like howler monkeys there. The feeder setup was great. So a lot of people commented that it'd be great for bird photography. What's your
Mm.
take on the Makenke Eco Lodge?
Yeah, Mackenzie is a good example of how diverse the bird watching can be in the country. This is located in the northern plains of the country, so it's connected with different biological corridors with Nicaragua, even from part of Nicaragua, and all the wildlife that move through that area. And so Mackenzie is an example of how the bird watching lodges in Costa Rica have developed and their properties. And as you say, well, they have a beautiful lagoon there that attracts a lot of nice birds, creatures there, as well as they're located next to a big river. And so the diversity there is quite amazing. There's great green macaws, for example, flying around the forest, the bird feeders that they have, all of that, the boat tours they offer. So different areas, different lodges in Costa Rica, not only Mackenzie, they actually have a very nice setup for birding and photography because, well, the amount of species that they have, it's just pretty wide, as well as what they have done in their property. They have set up different trails. The forest that they have, or the property itself, is quite large. Again, connected with different environments, not only let's say rainforests, but also let's say pastures or farms. That also
Mhm.
brings a lot of different species of birds that you can find them in different environments. Um, so we do have it. Normally in our trips, we try to include at least three different destinations in three different locations, three different elevations as well. Because depends where you go. Well, the species obviously will be different. And the northern side of the country is a really good one. And Mackenzie, in that specific area, is called Boca Tapada, and it's quite famous, quite popular for bird watching.
Yeah, and I think it was a great place to start out because kind of being introduced to all those species for the first time, you got close-up views of a lot of things like the toucan species.
Mm-hmm.
I remember Keelbild was hanging out there. We had the Trogon over there, and we were also able to access the nearby places that were really cool, like the king
Yeah.
vulture spot that we got to sit in a
Mm-hmm.
blind and watch the king vultures. We did a little rafting down the river. We had great green macaws flying over there, kingfisher species. Um, it was just amazing to kind of just be dropped into that environment, and I feel like McKenke was a great place to experience that for the first time with it being a lot of close-up views, not a lot of just fleeting things where you're kind of wanting more. You really got to soak it in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the variety of environments again. Mackenzie is a large property, but and well, they have this lagoon that brings a lot of different species. A lot of herons were there,
Mhm.
jacanas, um, but also in the feeders, as you say. Well, we had toucans, only what 10 feet, or
Yeah,
even less
yeah.
than that. And for photography, it was just amazing. Among other species that they were very close by, different parrots and parakeets as well. But they also have the rainforest, which is a very good forest, mature forest, that brings different species like moths or ant or some rains, species that maybe we don't see in the feeders, but they are in the property, they're close, and you can walk around the trails. Um, and then when we went outside and drove through the uh, pasture lands or different and farms, other properties, just by driving around. The amount of wildlife. Remember the howler monkeys just
Mhm.
jumping around, and then seed eaters, among others, the macaws. All the different environments just around the property. It makes it a unique place. And this is again one example of different areas of the country, not only northern side, but also we go, let's say Pacific, North Pacific, which is drier. There are also places there that they have very good setup. We go down south for the let's say Tortuguero or the southern Caribbean side as well. A lot of good places as well to go. Southern Pacific that they have, as we know them as hotspots, the hotspots for bird watching. So these lodges are pretty quite common and popular.
Yeah, and I feel like Costa Rica does a great job with the ecotourism aspect. And it's cool to see lodges actually centered around birding. And we have that in some of our hotspots, like South Texas is pretty optimized for birding, but to see kind of the whole country have that
Mm-hmm.
side of it was really cool. I do remember one thing that one of our teachers talked about before we went down is she gave us what she called the toilet paper talk, where a lot of the
Uh,
plumbing isn't set up. So you actually just throw your toilet paper away, which never really was much of a problem, but it might be a weird adjustment for people coming down there. Is that at all your places or just some of them or, how does that work?
it is on most of our places. Most of the Some of the hotels in the city, maybe they have set up a different system, and then you can handle the toilet paper inside. But normally outside countryside, it's part of our, can say, culture.
Mhm.
It's how we do it. The system that we use, septic tanks and all that. Yeah, you always will see a trash bin right next to the toilet, and that's for the every paper product. It goes there. Otherwise, we're gonna have a surprise. Maybe plug the toilet. Um, that's one of the things. Yeah, part of the culture here. Actually, but we also have, let's say, um, our currency, for example. We use dollars a lot into the tourism industry because it's quite big here. But our currency is called colones, and it's a little bit confusing at the beginning, but once you get it, it's not that bad. But our bills, you got a chance to see them. They are very beautiful, actually, very beautiful money.
Yeah, they are
Um,
very beautiful.
each of them has is different design, different size, of course, different amount of money. And each of them represents one environment: coral reef, rainforest, mangrove, paramo, highlands, and all that. So it's different. another good thing is that pretty much all over the country you can drink the water. So Costa Rica has 99% of our water is drinkable. It has to be very specific places that you probably cannot drink it, but it's very rare. So water is quite good. There you go. That's it. That's part of our bills. Some of them are the older ones, the ones that probably that we don't use, but and you see that one on the coins as well.
Hmm.
There you go.
Yeah, I
50,000.
remember trying to collect all the different ones to take back
Yeah,
just because they're so
yeah,
cool looking.
yeah. Yeah, we have changed some of the bills into bigger amounts, but we have six different bills. Um, yeah, different things in our culture, let's say, that we use. That will be a little bit different, for our visitors. But this is part of what we explain in our welcome orientation at the very beginning of the trip, so people can get more familiarized with what are the most important facts, let's say, about the country. Mhm.
Yeah, and one of the main things that you'll hear down there is people saying Pura Vida. That's, a huge part of the culture. You want to explain to everybody what that means?
Yeah, yeah. You'll see Pura Vida. You may notice that in, let's say, signs. A lot of the souvenir shop, for example, they sell shirts that say Pura Vida, or every little, souvenir. That's the slogan, Costa Rican slogan. Pura Vida means in English, pure life, and that's a very Costa Rican. That's actually our slogan, and because, well, for us living in a country without an army since 1948, for example, living in a country where we have a democracy, and in a country when you can, we choose our president, we we have a lot of different good things. After this, well, there's a lot of big history after the 48, which is that was the date when we transformed our country, was the second constitution of the country. And we feel very proud of the country where we live, the freedom that you feel, you know, traveling around, meeting local people, especially in the countryside. Is that feeling that is actually really nice. Seeing kids, for example, walking to the school without any problem, within the same community or area. So for us living here, means that it's a pure life, and we feel proud of that. Normally, foreigners, not only from the U.S. but from many other countries, that they visit Costa Rica, they say that when they see Costa Ricans, they see people smiling, always very welcoming people, and I think we are that kind of uh, Costa Rican. The Costa Ricans were that kind of person, people here. We're very welcoming. We feel happy and proud of just living here. And the Pura Vida is really represents what we do, how do we live, what do we feel here in the country. Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree too. It's hard to visit some of those places and not feel relaxed and, just excited about life and everything you guys have going on. Um, what are some other things that people need to know before they visit or might be surprised about that they would want to prepare for? Like we talked a little bit about the toilet paper thing. That's probably news to a lot of people. I didn't know that before. We were kind of informed before we came down. What else would people need to know or might be surprised about if they came down for a birding trip?
Well, I would say that we normally provide a good packing list
Hmm.
and related to clothing, what to wear, because as I just mentioned, we normally go to three different locations. And since the country is small, but since in 1 hour, hour and a half, you can drive and change the weather, elevation, temperature from lower land up to highland or highland to lower. And the weather and the temperature itself would feel very different. So if we go, let's say you wanted to see the quetzal and some of the highland species of birds, well, up there it is more chilly,
Hmm.
and It could be that you may feel in the cloud forest, for example, um, depending on the season, more rain, let's say, or just these clouds um, going through the cloud forest, and you may get wet, and it gets chilly because it's also windy up there at some point. So, what to wear in those specific areas? Also, if you go down to a lower lane, you would feel that it's humid, especially the one in the Caribbean or northern side. So the humidity there is higher, and if you just wear, either long sleeve, long hands, or thicker clothes, the ones that you normally wear on higher elevation or cooler weather, well, those are not the good ones that you wanted to wear in the lower lands. So, yeah, it's a good packing list that people has to know. They have to know in order to prepare to bring a the proper clothing and also footwear as well. You're in the lower lands, and depending on the trail, you can go, with just easy some shoes, hiking shoes, or it could be your tennis shoes, depending on the lodge, depending when you are. And but maybe you don't need your hiking shoes, for example, depending when you are in that area. But if you go up in the higher lanes, maybe you wanted to wear something a little bit different. And so depending on the weather, season, the footwear could change, and as well as the clothing. That is something that is very important to know.
Yeah, I don't think some of the people in our group understood just how cold it would be in the Highlands. It got pretty
Yeah.
chilly at night. Like, we were talking like sleeping in your jacket with a bunch of blankets on. Although I will say that was one of my favorite places, the Highland ecology was just so
Mm.
cool up there and seeing all those species. And then, of course, the Osa Peninsula. There's a crazy stat with that, like 3% of the world's biodiversity can be found there, something like that. Do you know what it is offhand?
Yeah, that's the Corcovado National Park,
Yeah.
and it covers most of the peninsula, Osa Peninsula, down there in the southern Pacific of the country. Um, and also there is a big chain of mangrove on the Sierpe River that also makes it really um, diverse there. So it's yeah, down there we have a lot of wildlife. It's the only place, for example, where you can find the four species of monkeys that we have in the country. The only place where you can find, for example, the two species of sloth and some of the migratory birds, for example, are found there during the migration. But also, and that area is where you can find some specific species that nowhere else in the country you can see. So Southern Pacific is a unique place. And yes, it is more humid because it's a lowland. It's a lower land, and you have to be prepared for the humidity. And also, since we're in the tropics, be prepared for sun, for example. The radiation here is harder, so we always recommend people to use the sunscreen and bug spray because bugs here in the tropics we have more, of course. In some places you may or may not feel more mosquitoes than others, but definitely in the forest you will feel more. Also, depending on the season, could be more or less, but always recommended to apply both, either bug spray and sunscreen. And highly recommended always, wherever we go, water. Stay
Mm.
hydrated because, again, the radiation here is different. And people just like, being out there just in an easy walk, you are losing fluids, and people may start feeling, let's say, just mild symptoms like headaches or little stomach ache, things like that. That also is the beginning of dehydration, and people don't know what is that. So drinking water is so important. Mhm.
Yeah, I would agree for sure. Some stats on OSA says Nat Geo coined it the most biologically intense place on Earth with over 300 endemic species, plants, and vertebrates, the largest population of scarlet macaws in Central America, and 140 mammal species. But when we went there, it just felt like you could encounter anything. It's such a wild place. I think we took a boat over there, and then you kind of get dropped off, and we went in, walked around, and there was just so much to see, and it really felt like you could encounter any type of animal in there. Like who knew what was all in there?
Yeah, well, the park is so extensive.
Mm,
It's one of the largest, and also it's right next to this CRP chain of mangroves, which it also provides even more wildlife. Um, but yeah, you're right. This is a place that also not only the size, but also how in some. And we went to the middle of the park in the Sirena station because it has different stations around the park. Sirena is my favorite because it's the one located right in the middle of the park. So yeah, it's like you getting off the boat. It's an isolated place. Only access is by boat. Um, it was about an hour. It could be an hour, it could be an hour and a half, depending on the tide. And but it's since you were getting off the boat, we could see the peccaries, for example, in the distance, or we went to see the tapir, for
hmm.
example, there. And eaters, for example. We saw an owl, the monkeys as well, uh, coatis, um, well, reptiles. We saw the crocodiles, iguanas, lizards. I mean, and there was a lot of different things that you can see there. Pretty much everybody can see everything there. Is there are a lot of people that visit that place, and when you see other groups with other guys, they say, "Oh, have you seen that? Have you seen this?" And everybody's sharing the information, and definitely everybody goes there, and one day can see a lot of different things. Um, in Costa Rica, well, we have close to 55% of the country is protected already nowadays. 29% of that is under a national park system, and the other half is in private hands. And that is how the ecotourism has grown in the last years here in Costa Rica. So, in private hands, private properties like Makenke Lodge, for example, that is one example. They own the lodge, they have the trails, but they have a huge area of forest that they protect. And this is their main goal and attraction is, well, the wildlife that you can find there. And we have many projects in private hands, small, medium, and big properties in private hands that their only goal is to protect the environment. So the wildlife protection of forests in different elevations, not only rainforest but also cloud forest, for example, dry forest as well. Um, they've been growing, and we can see that. Me as a guy that I go out in the fields, I can see how populations of animals in general they have grown a lot. Um, Now that you mention macaws, for example, scarlet and the great green macaws, now we see them in different areas. We see them more often. There was good news here where I live, near where I live, that there was a record of around 50 different pairs of great green macaws flying around to Real. So those are great news for us. And those are examples that not only in Corcovado down there in the Osa Peninsula, we have a lot of biodiversity, but also all over the country. The forest cover in the country is over 50%. So that is something that is really nice, really good.
Yeah, it's great to hear that so much of it's protected and that the species seem like they're increasing. One of my favorite ones to observe was the Montezuma oropendola. They're
Mm.
just goofy. They make those huge hanging nests, and then every once in a while you'd find was chestnut-headed oropendola mixed in. What's your favorite Costa Rican species if you could pick one? Or you can go top three if it's too hard to pick one.
Well, it's hard to find. For me, I had to choose just a single one, and a lot of people ask me the same question: what is my favorite? But from let's say the crown wood nymph, which is a hummingbird, it's just amazing colorations, or the Talamanca hummingbird, which is an
Hmm.
endemic species here. those are great hummingbirds, but also, seeing the resplendent quetzal, of
Hmm.
course, amazing. But if I go, let's say, to the southern Pacific near Corcovado and got to see the black chick and tanager, well, that one it's restricted to that specific area. Um, we go and see, let's say, up in the highlands, the black one, which is another endemic species of Costa Rica, and there's several. And the Montezuma Autopendola, I love that bird. Um, Not only the colors that they have, I mean, it has many different colorations on the head and the cheeks, a bicolor beak, but also the way they fly. It's so amazing, so strong. And for me, the most amazing is their nests. It's just seeing when you see an oriole nest, the same little sack, but this one is about what, close to 3 4 feet in some of them long, and it's so strong. So when the nesting season is over, some of the nests they fall to the ground, and people like to pick them and hang them in the house just to decorate the house. The birds wouldn't reuse them, if they fall, but people would reuse them to decorate our houses. And it's amazing how they can build such a beautiful nest and the size of that nest, and how long they last. Actually, it's pretty amazing. Um, we just had an annual birding count here in our property, and so we made some shirts, and I chose the Montezuma Autopendola for the logo of that activity because I think it's an amazing bird. And yes, the chestnut-headed Autopendola is the other one that we can see around here, and that one is also a beautiful. It just built a smaller nest, but it's another beautiful.
Yeah, here's
And
the shirt if
there
people
you
want to
go.
check it out. Yeah, look at that Oropendola.
Yeah.
Very cool shirts.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, one other thing with the bugs, of course, a lot of bugs down there, but not touching any trees on the trails. When you're on those trails, you don't want to touch any of that stuff. That's very different than here. If you kind of know what you're doing, you can like touch a tree and it's not going to do anything. But there's trees that you don't know have wasps' nests. There's things you can get on your hand. It's like it can get dicey very quickly if you go off trail. So I think that's another big thing for people coming down is, listen to your guide, make sure you're not touching things you're not supposed to be touching so that you can protect yourself.
Yeah. Well, not only we don't have poison ivy, for example, here, but we have a couple of plants that they may cause a rash if you touch them by accident. And but in the forest would be, let's say, more trees or vines that they would have some spikes or thorns that might be a little sharp. So not touching anything, just in case is one of those. But also, yeah, we do have a lot of creatures that they may be hiding underneath the leaves, for example, and some of them could be some of the paper wasps, um, or just different species of wasps that they would build their nests underneath the leaves. Um, if you are very lucky, you might get surprised that under the some of the leaves you may find some of the bats, for example, that we have. We have some bats that are called the tent making bats. They're so beautiful. If you find them in the forest, it's just a blast. They're very beautiful. Um, it could be a surprise if you find any bats, but also different, just either grasshoppers or katydids that they might be hiding in sometimes over or underneath the leaves, so we don't want to touch them. And but what the guides were always looking for, and we try to always walk in front of the group all the time, is because of the snakes.
Hmm.
In Costa Rica, we have close to 140 different species of snakes. It's a large number. From that number, we have around 25 species that are venomous. The rest of them are non-venomous, but a lot of them have changed or adapt their colorations just to mimic, and try to look like some of the venomous ones.
Mm-hmm.
And into the venomous families, we have two different families. The viper family. Vipidae family that includes some of the largest vipers that we have: Bushmaster, Fer-de-Lance, hognose pit vipers, eyelash palm pit vipers, for example, and among others that they, of course, they are dangerous. And the second family is the Elapidae, which is the coral family. So we
Mm-hmm.
have 60 of those. There are more, let's say, rare than the vipers. But the other day I was talking to a friend, and she was telling me that she's scared of. It's a Costa Rican. She's scared of snakes, and she say, how do you do when you go out in the tour and see a snake? And I was telling her that it's actually not that common to find snakes on a tour during a, let's say, through a trail. It's not that common. I would say maybe because every place you go, it could be a national park or some of the trails that is a private property. They are normally very well maintained,
Mm-hmm.
so they're very clean and you can see very well when you're walking through. But I have found some of the snakes, in the middle of the trail, for example. But it's something that is not that common. Now, I'm on guides when we go to a place and we find a snake. We, of course, we spread the word and people can be aware, other tour guides when they tell the groups. And as well, we can show the people, where is that creature. And normally we see snakes through a scope, spotting scope, so we don't get that close, which is
Mm-hmm.
something you have to be. Even if this is a non-venomous snake, you have to be very careful because even if that one it doesn't have any sort of venom, it has some toxins that if you get bit by one of those, um, you may get a wound that has to be seen, by a doctor, treated. Otherwise, you may get an infection.
Mm-hmm.
And but we have from, let's say, boas. We have different species of boas, among other like vine snakes, green vine snakes, that they are non-venomous, and but you have to be always aware. And the tour guides are always looking for, anything around the forest. Could be birds, animals, lizards, mammals, reptiles, amphibians. And but the snakes are the ones that we always, aware the most because we have some of the vipers. And when we see a snake in the forest in a tour, that's a highlight. It's something
Mm-hmm.
really nice, of course, something that is not that common. But now going back to not touching any trees is because some of these snakes, they have adapted their body colorations in different ways. Some of them in a dull color. If there is a, let's say, dead leaves on the ground or moss, they may look exactly like that. To the ones that are also showing bright colors, like the eyelash palm pit vipers. We have those in different colors. We have them in bright yellow color, nice green with some dots, reddish color, greenish in different tones, but there are different coloration, brown. So depending on the environment or the plants where that snake is, the same species can have different colorations. So if you see a nice bright yellow flower from a heliconia or marantasia flower, which is very beautiful, and a lot of hummingbirds go visit that flower, well, it could be that maybe one of these yellow snakes is coiled around the flower waiting for um, some of these hummingbirds, for example. So always, yeah, being aware of not touching anything. That's something that we always remind the people. Um, it's common to see around the lodges, for example, a lot of these plants with flowers, beautiful flowers, plants that sometimes you can find in the U.S., for example, in a little size on a base. You buy them in a store. Well, here they have 6 feet high, for example. They grow totally different here, much much bigger, and the flowers, of course, they're bigger in size. So they're very attractive, beautiful pictures and all that. But always being aware is very important.
Yeah, and one of the highlights on the trip was finding an eyelash pit viper that you guys found and getting to see that because it wasn't very big, but it had incredible color and just seeing,
Yeah.
seeing something like that you see in a nature documentary out in the wild was awesome. And the sloths, the sloths were cool. There's just so much to see. We saw, mammals in the ocean, different species of fish, got to do some snorkeling, waterfall rappelling. So it's kind of like when you're there, if you're a nature lover, like even if you're mostly a bird person, but you also appreciate other animals, like you're just gonna have a blast seeing all that stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, even if you are definitely just bird watching, for example, you wouldn't miss the chance to see monkeys or see a sloth or see the iguanas or different things like that. You take a boat tour, for example, you get to see let's say the egrets or the herons or kingfishers. Around the rivers, there are always a lot to see. Um, we've seen otters, for example, river otters, iguanas. The other day we saw a tapir in one of those tours, for example, just from the boat. But it's just, you'll be bird watching, but at the same time, you'll have the chance to see a lot of good things.
Yeah, and another thing I wanted to mention is the food was really incredible too. Like yeah, everything was very fresh. It was just great stuff. It's not like you're eating processed. Well, there was some interesting like processed, foods down there that are different than what we have here, but the food we had at the lodges was all really, really good.
Yeah, the food is something that is quite good actually. We have many different dishes, Costa Rican dishes. And of course, well, our diet is based on rice and beans. We pretty much eat rice and beans at every meal. But also we have all other dishes that we may, add to the diet. And normally, the places where we stay, they may have different choices. And the tourism in Costa Rica, the industry has grown a lot in many different ways. And so we have, options for people with specific diets. Um, Either gluten free, for example, vegetarian, and people, with just specific diets. The lodges will provide a variety of different dishes. But Costa Rican food, yeah, very diverse. And one of the good things is in Costa Rica, well, we have very good soils, actually fertile volcanic soils, and the agriculture is quite big here. So we grow pretty much all the food that we eat, and we may import just very few fruits, like let's say some kiwis, for example, some grapes, and but pretty much everything else is grown here. And so at every place where you go, for example, for breakfast, or every time you're gonna eat fruits, they're fresh because
Yeah, the
they're
fruit was great.
yeah, they're grown here. And vegetables, for example, salads, that will be grown locally, depending on the area where you are. So yes, we do have you know, and you'll see the influence, American influence, while you drive through the cities mainly. We have McDonald's, we have Pizza Hut, we have KFC, and those restaurants that also Costa Ricans would like to go. My wife loves pizza, for example. That's her favorite, and because the influence of different cultures here, and, and that means also the food, and well, makes it even more variety the food that we have in Costa Rica. But we eat a lot of rice and beans, salads, a lot of fruits. For example, the juice in our meals, we normally drink a juice out of a fresh fruit. So it's not processed, pulp that you can buy or in any of these powdered things that you buy in the supermarket to make a drink. Here, we just go outside, for example, and harvest, let's say, some lemons or mangoes, or you can get papaya, or let's say some tropical like tamarindo or guanabana, mora, um, among others, different uh, tropical fruits that we may use. Normally, we drink or we in our meals we have a natural juice as a drink, uh, and that is fresh. That is fresh squeeze from just from the area. And we also eat well, a lot of meat, either chicken or pork or beef, fish, and that also it's produced here. But the presence of salads and fruits are always very fresh, and that is grown here. Mm.
Yeah, for sure. This is a tough question, but do you have
Uh,
a specific place that's your favorite place to go birding in Costa Rica?
to go birding, well, let's say I like the variety. I'm more like I like the mountain more than the beach, for example. If people ask me when I go for vacation, I'm more like a mountain person,
Hmm.
and I really like the highland,
Hmm.
and because I don't live in the highland. I live, let's say, in the middle, from the foothill to middle elevation is where I live. So here I have species that they are from the lower lands, and maybe one or two that they also, are close to the highlands. But every time I go to the highlands, everything is new for me. Even, that I've seen those species, but I don't see them that often, only when I go there. And so highlands, it's also one of my favorite places. Plus, in the highlands is where we have the highest amount of endemic species.
Hmm.
So those that only in Costa Rica you can see. So that's also a plus that makes the highlands. And we have highlands or birding spots in Costa Rica in different areas, not only one. So depending where I go in the highlands, I think that's one of my favorite.
Is there a species that you haven't seen yet that is next on your list that you really, really want to see?
Yeah, well, we have six mudmots, for example. I have seen five of them,
Hmm.
but I haven't seen the smallest, which is the toddy mudmot. And that one is in a very specific area in the Guanacaste region, which is more in the northern side of the country. I've been there, I've been trying to find him, but I haven't seen it yet. Um, that's one of those that I would like to see, and maybe let's say always it's hard to see ant thrushes or ant pitas.
Hmm.
So when I see one of those, it's just a blast because it's really, really hard to see them. You can hear them, but seeing them is extremely hard. So the last one that I saw was a streak ant pita down at Carrara National Park. This is in the Central Pacific. And I was there several times. I could hear it and tried to look for it, but couldn't see it. And then last time I was there, we saw it. We saw it very well. I was able to take pictures and a video and all that. It was just amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It is funny because rarity is all driven by where you can find something. And so in the cities, you guys have the red-billed pigeons, and that was my first experience seeing red-billed pigeon. But in
Uh-huh.
South Texas in the United States, sometimes they get red-billed pigeons at the very top of the range. And so that's a species that everyone like would love to see. They're like, "Oh man, I would love to see a red-billed pigeon here." But in Costa Rica, they're just like in the city and you can find them almost anywhere. So it is all
Yeah.
relative, but we also had mottled owl show up in South Texas too. So people have
Mhm.
been enjoying seeing that one and some of the other, species down there. But uh, just Ryan, my brother, he's convinced that if he goes to a place like Costa Rica, it's going to be overwhelming because there's going to be so many new things. I thought it
Uh-huh.
was really cool to just kind of be, every bird's new, more or less. But do you find that people that go there are kind of overwhelmed by the diversity if they've never been to the tropics before? And how do you kind of manage that as a guide?
Well, yeah. Well, my trips I have taken people from very zero experience beginners on bird watching to the ones that are more expert and they come with a target species. Um, but always, yeah, always people get very surprised and overwhelming on the fact that the amount of species that you can see in one day, is quite large. and depending also the area where we go, you know, open areas are normally or offers more species, let's say, an amount of them. If we go deeper in the forest, it will be less species, or at the same time, it will be a little bit harder bird watching because of the woods. So you
Mhm.
have to be real good, good skills with binoculars. Um, and that happens also, it's a little bit not difficult, but it's a different experience for the ones who are beginners. Normally, when beginners they come, it doesn't mean that they don't know anything. They know about birds, and they do have the skill of being quick with the binoculars. That is a good thing. Um, but the species here are new for them, and well, pretty much every bird that we see around here will be new for them. Um, but in the woods is a different experience than being, let's say, in the more in the outdoor or open fields. So depending when we go, but again, the amount of species depending the elevation or the area is very different. It's different for me as a local here in Costa Rica. I'm here where I am, and I go out and I can see easily 50 species in one day, and not the full day. Let's say one morning, I can see 50 species around where I live. But if I go up to the highlands, every species will be different because we don't have them here. So if we move from an area to a different area, so that list of birds for the people will be growing and growing every time we move through the trip because that's what we do, including the different areas or places where we stay that they offer a variety of different species.
Yeah, definitely. And the trips that you guys do, they're all inclusive, right? So it's like you pay a certain price and then you guys will pick people up at the airport, take them everywhere they need to go, and then drop them back off. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's a all included, so we don't have to bother to uh, or people come and think about different details. So it will be picking you up either the group or just different flights and meet in one hotel nearby the airport, for example, and where the whole group can get together. And then the next morning we leave to our first destination. So we'll be traveling all together and from area to an area. That day, for example, the driving day, we also, have a specific places, burden spots where we may stop, of course, and you know, there's a specific species that we wanted to see, or just areas that we wanted to stop and spend an hour, something like that, and then we continue to our next area. And normally, location to location, let's say it involves a couple hours to 3 hours, depending on traffic, for example, or the route that we would take. Normally, it takes a little bit longer when we stop for birding, for sure, and
Mhm.
we stop for lunch and things like that. And normally, we stop for lunch. We choose a place that has either a trail or has some bird feeders. So, at the same time, we spend the time at lunch, but we have our binoculars right there because yeah, it's a location that provides all of this around.
Yeah, what was that place we stopped in the Highlands that had the epic balcony bird feeder set up? You know what I'm talking
Uh,
about?
yeah, that's it's called Median's Place. Well,
Yeah,
the
that was an incredible stop.
name of the owner is Medium, and she has a just a little place there, convenient for a group, and but they have nice feeder outside, and then really good species of birds
Hmm.
there. So just very convenient. So those are the places connections that we have depending on the area where we go. And so, yeah, we'll be traveling, together, getting to a specific lodge that we normally spend 2 nights there. And so we have a full day at the property so we can explore the area, not only the property of the hotel, but also the lodge, but also the surroundings. So we have our vehicle available. Just in the afternoon, we have a couple hours and we wanted to go and not too far and see. a specific target, we can do that, and then continue moving to the next area and go on. So until we end up, our last night near the airport, so everybody can have, their flights and an easy access the next morning. And normally, well, the programs include all meals, so we'll have breakfast included, but also lunches and dinners, depending again the day. If we are staying at the lodge, or if we go out of the lodge, let's say to a nearby spot, we may or may not have either lunch or dinner at the same lodge where we stay. But normally meals are included as well. Plus, of course, a birding guide the entire trip. So he or she will be with the group since early in the morning, spend the whole day birding with the group, and normally at least one night. That's what we do. At least one night per location, we may go out and look for owls, and so or night yards, depending on the area. But at least one night per place lodge where we stay, and we go out a little bit at night. Mhm.
Yeah, the night stuff was really cool. Seeing the red-eyed tree frogs. Went out to do that one night, and then we did have good luck with seeing like bear shank screech owl, and then dusky nightjar, was it?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
stuff's
Not
really
only,
cool.
yeah, same as during the day you don't only see birds, you also see a lot of different things. Well, at night also you may see some of the night creatures. The targets are owls or nightjars, but at the same time you may find and get surprised with other creatures as well.
Yeah. That was just looked up a picture of it. That's just such a cool bird. Dusky nightjar.
Mhm. Yep, there you go.
Yeah,
Yeah, we saw that.
those night birds are just so mysterious that you feel so lucky when you get a glimpse at them.
Yeah, yeah.
So people can expect you guys have like a price for the trip that's including all the stuff. And then if there's more people going, then the price is less, right? So it's kind of like, if you
Yeah.
have a group, then it's going to be less per person. And then
Mhm.
people would expect to pay that price. Their flights are on their own, right? So it's flights, that cost. And then sometimes you guys have add-ons for things. So like, if you want to get something extra, you can, but it's,
Yeah,
optional type stuff.
yeah. The price would include transportation from the airport till the very end of the trip, full-time guide, all meals, accommodations, and any extra expenses would go on your own. Let's say like any extra tour, for example, or any let's say laundry or any extra drink. Normally, alcoholic drinks are not included, and and then the flights will be on their own. So we normally don't cover the flights in any of our trips. Um, and so it's like an all included package. Now, for in the case for burden, we normally would like to we have a base price based on two people, but if there are more people, joining, we can form a group, which is actually better. And yes, the rate will be will be cheaper in this
Mhm.
case. We're more affordable for people and lower price. And if we have um, in this case a group. Now, in the case of depending on the size of the group, our vehicle will be different. Let's say this, we don't need let's say a 24 packs vehicle if we only have two people or four traveling one of the trips. So we may use a smaller van, or even I have taken couples and just 4x4, SUV, and we use that type of vehicle. But depending on the size of the group, the size of the vehicle would change, and no more, of course, than 12 people. 14 will be actually, we like to have groups of max 12 people
Mhm.
for bird watching. that is better for birding. And also the access of places where we go. So the size of the bus will be the best, more convenient. And so it's good enough for that amount of people as well as the luggage traveling around. And but at the same time, just that group of people, 12, is a good number to manage in order for bird watching into trails or feeders, things like that. Mhm.
Cool. For sure. Well, of course, I was down there. We had a great time doing some birding, so would definitely recommend you guys in Costa Rican nature. You guys are going to be part of our guiding networks. We'll have a page on our website as well, so you guys can check that out. We'll have some different itineraries on there, and if you guys want to book, you can send Jose an email and let him know that we sent you over there. But a lot of great stuff down in Costa Rica. I think it's a must-visit destination for anyone who likes birds and nature in general. I kind of feel like everyone has to go visit at least once in their life.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, it's a great place. Well, I'm a local. I'm Costa Rican, and I feel proud, of being a Costa Rican living here. I've been in tourism for about 14 years already, and well, I'm passionate on bird watching, and I'm pretty sure if you come down here, you're gonna have a blast on the amount of species that you may see and the type of birds that you may find around here. So we'll make sure that you have a good time, and of course, fill up that list, that life list, and getting a lot of targets. That will be our priority while you're down here.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how many lifers I got down there because of course our whole trip wasn't even birding based. We just did a lot of birding while we were there and we got to see a lot of species. So I have 249 species in Costa Rica. So I mean, that's pretty cool. And there's so much more to see too. I feel like you can't even really cover everything in just one trip unless it's a really
Yeah.
long trip. Is there a specific time of year that's better for people to come visit?
Well, I would say that, let's say from February, March, April, those 3 months of the year and the beginning of the year are good. And then October, November, uh, part of December are also good for bird watching down here. Mhm.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, Jose. Anything else you want to mention about birding in Costa Rica or the agency?
Well, no, we'll be more than happy to share, our experience. And yeah, with over 14 years of experience traveling around the country, well, we know the fields. Just like the example that you mentioned, that little place where we ate,
Hmm.
Miriam's place, as a nice birding spot. Those are the places that you get to know just by exploring the country. And well, we have connections all over, and so the birding trips that we have designed, they offer each of them offer they have their own uniqueness since we move around in different areas. So we just make sure that you have a good time and get to see a lot of birds, and not only birds, but a lot of wildlife in general. You'll be surprised of how much you can see around traveling with us.
Yeah, definitely. I have a couple of the Costa Rica videos out, so you can check them out on our channel. There's more to come. Even just talking about it, I was thinking about how much fun we had out there and how excited I am to edit some of that stuff that's still left. Um, so yeah, thanks so much for joining us, Jose, and thanks to everyone for watching this episode and listening to the Badgerland Birding Podcast.